Bear with me, as I want to share a story with you that will make it clear why learning this is so important. I grew up in a working class family. We were never rich, but neither were we poor. From that background, you learn that if you want something, you have to follow the rules to get it. This is a message that was reinforced in everything. In the cartoons I watched as a child, to the Hollywood blockbusters and video games that would make up the bulk of my teenage years. We are vulnerable to the stories we are told by society at large, because until I was 21, I believed that getting everything I wanted, especially in my dating life, would happen as long as I followed the rules, as long as I worked hard and was a productive member of society. Those are the stories that society gave me. I'm grateful that we have them, that we have such freedom, to know that I most likely won't die in an armed conflict or while trying to hunt my own food. But the unintended consequence was that I was always waiting for something to happen. So what the discovery of dating coaching did for me was that it saved me from that single story. I moved around as a child. My dad was an undertaker, and getting a better job or higher station usually meant moving to a different area. I developed a habit of shyness. I was incredibly shy, and from that developed low self-esteem, feeling like an outsider amongst all my peers. The story I told myself, the one that is paraded around for all manner of setbacks, that I just wasn't enough in some way. Maybe I wasn't good looking enough, smart enough. The same way I have other men tell me they aren't rich enough to meet women, they're too old. Over the years, people told me I devalued myself too much, and I didn't understand what they could mean. One day I realized that I was independently keeping the company I worked for then profitable. I was completely responsible for all the revenue brought in that stopped them going bankrupt. It never occurred to me until that moment that I had all these hidden inner reserves of ingenuity or power, and that there must be something deeper that others could appreciate about me. It never occurred to me that the deeper parts were more important than the superficial things everyone can measure arbitrarily, and that I could show people those things through my actions and my words. Before, I was stuck with a single story of what mattered: looks, money, status. And it wasn't true. When I moved to the United States in my 20s, I worked with many students, and as I worked with them, they would defer to my opinion. They would follow my advice implicitly, as though I was more than just an instructor. When talking to these men, they would always see me as a role model. Even though I was far younger than them, they would hold me up as a paragon in a female-dominated world. When I sat down to talk to one, the conversation drifted to the role of men in society. This student had no idea what he wanted. He was told by one person or another where to go, which careers were good, and he listened. He believed that other opinions were more valued than his wants, and he had come to believe that from his own life events. There was nothing but awe for anyone who had chosen their own path. I was probably not a real human to him, just an anomaly on a spectrum of humanity. And that was his single story, that wouldn't allow another emotional response to my role in his world. When we tell a single story over and over again to ourselves, we are allowing the circumstances to become more powerful than us. We relax into resignation and cynicism, and we choose those over living the life we want. Ultimately, when we look at the stories we tell ourselves in life, we look into power and whether we have any. I am not any better at avoiding this part of being human than you. I've just seen a lot of stories, and I've told myself a lot too. When I put these stories together, when I take my life and each part of the tapestry as a whole, that's when I can be empowered. The problem with the single story is not that it isn't true, it is that it is incomplete. The consequence of the single story is that it robs people of freedom. It creates a shield to empathize why things aren't the way we want them, and why that's just the way it is. Can you imagine what would have happened if my student had been told by others that his experiences were useful, and his own knowledge and opinions mattered, even if others had more experience? Or someone had told me that character could be just as important as surface qualities when it comes to your value in the world? What a difference it would have made if someone had told me that you should follow the rules, but they aren't really rules. They're guidelines that bend and curve differently for each of us. And that's what learning how to become better with women did for me. It pushed me to break out from my own single stories, the self-imposed limitations, and go for something I wanted, to become a better person, someone I wanted to be, but was afraid to become. This is what it can do for you. No matter what stage of life you are in, or how much or little help you think you need, this is why this skill is worth learning and why I've seen it transform hundreds and thousands of men's lives. That's why I want to share my knowledge with you on your journey and get you out of your single stories and into success with women.